What's up, Whisper Nation? Johnny Game Time Hicks, Big Travy, and Austin Sear here with episode 88 of the Fantasy Whisperers. We're breaking down Week 10. Yes, I said Week 10 game previews right here. Let's get it.
Yes, we're back again.
Hey, let's pump up the volume.
Right here.
What's up, Whisper Nation? It's Thursday, November 7th, and you're listening to episode 88 of the Fantasy Whispers with your hosts, Johnny Game Time Hicks, Big Travy, and me, Austin. If you want to follow the show, you can do so on Twitter at TF Whispers. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram at The Fantasy Whispers. And you should definitely visit the website, thefantasywhispers.com. We have articles, latest episodes, and of course, our rankings. And new for 2019, we have our Patreon account. So head on over to patreon.com and search The Fantasy Whispers to check us out.
What's good, guys? Welcome in. Week 10 is upon us. And so, as we do every week, we try to do every week. We get in here and we're going to dive into like our top 5 matchups of the week. Also give you some under the radar plays, some under the radar fades and things of that nature. So welcome back in, Austin. We always love having you, brother. And I believe by the time we're listening to this, you probably already have your 2-minute drill out. Is that correct?
That should be the case. Got that 2-minute drill in, running through every single matchup we see this week in week 10, basically giving you the starts and the sits, speaking as fast as I can while still giving you content that's usable. All the teams done in under 2 minutes. Check it out.
Johnny. So
I can confirm they will be able to have already seen the 2-minute drill. It is
perfect. So they just got to subscribe on YouTube. Isn't that right, Johnny? Subscribe on YouTube, the Fantasy Whispers, as Austin was alluding to there. And that is great. We're going to try and get Austin rolling back in the Whisper perspectives as well this week, which is another, interesting take on higher level topics within the NFL. Also diving into what that may mean for your fantasy football roster, but just a lot of fun to get those rolling back out. So I'm excited.
Yeah,
for
me
that
too.
as well. As always, before we jump into this Week 10 slate of games in action, we are going to go into some news and notes. Isn't that right, Austin?
That's right. And they are brought to you by Fanatic. It's where Fanatic is where fanhood meets IQ. That's FANATIQ. Fanatic has done some amazing work to help their app this offseason, including adding articles, podcasts, episodes, player stats, and beat writer updates, all within the app. Head on over to the App Store on your Apple device and download today.
Sweet. So jumping right into this news and notes, Austin, what do we got on the slate?
Brandon Cooks is out this week. We know that. He's going to visit a specialist over there in Pittsburgh. He's coming with the team, but he's not going to be playing. This could really mean some good things for that third wide receiver. I saw him. You pick him up in our League of Record.
Yeah, Josh Reynolds did some big things for the Rams last week. That could mean some extended time for him. We'll see if the Rams use their bye to improve some of the communication on their offensive line to let some of these plays develop down the field. Goff has been very hit and miss, but you just feel for a guy like Brandon Cooks who, and for the entire team, they were really excited to acquire Brandon Cooks when they did from the Patriots, and now he's seeing some concussions.
Yeah, I hope he's okay. I hope he makes it back before the end of the year. We'll stay tuned for that one. Over in Arizona, Cardinals running back David Johnson said he is definitely playing. I am 100%. Johnny, you buying this? What does it mean?
I do buy that he's really close to 100%. Who knows if any football player is 100%, 10 weeks in, you're going to call the BS card here. But I will say that they do plan on using him quite often in this game. I actually do think that they will not give him a full workload because they don't want him to re-injure it or, have that risk there. So Kenyon Drake, look for him to get a good amount of plays in this week.
All right. Over in Cincinnati, longtime fantasy stud AJ Green was set to make his debut, but then he had a holdup at practice. Didn't practice today, and nobody has any idea what's going on. Maybe Travis does.
I don't claim to know what's going on over there, especially with any number one wide receiver. It was funny in our League of Record group chat. We got to talking about how, maybe there's an AB situation brewing here. I don't think it's that dramatic or that bad, but we did have the coach come out to the podium and say that AJ Green would be practicing this week, getting ready to play this game, and then he did not practice. So monitor this closely because AJ Green is in a contract year. but is going to be catching passes from Andy Dalton for the first time, in his career.
And is it even Andy Dalton? Yeah, Andy Dalton's getting
Right,
bench
that's what I'm
sick, right?
without.
That's what I meant.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, catching passes without Andy Dalton for the first time.
You know, and if he is in that contract year, either if he could come back and ball out, that's a good thing. But if he's setting himself up to be in a
for
position
the next team, or yeah,
if he comes in for the remaining games and doesn't look good, it's not going to help his contract situation.
Exactly.
We'll definitely stay tuned to this moving forward. Malcolm Brown is trending in the right direction, running back for the Los Angeles Rams. Johnny, does this mean anything?
What does this mean? This means I have no idea, because before Malcolm Brown was playing, he didn't look that good, and you saw Henderson. He looked like the more explosive running back there. So I honestly think that Henderson has earned his spot as the backup running back here over Malcolm Brown, but I guess they like the depth. There's always a scary situation there with Todd Gurley.
Most definitely. Giants wide receiver Sterling Shepard. They're considering placing him on IR.
Yeah, this is another scary one, similar to the Brandon Cook situation, where multiple concussions in their career, going to see that same specialist, or at least a specialist regarding the concussions. The Giants considering IR, and how can you blame him? He's had multiple concussions just this year. Was cleared last week on Friday. Saturday woke up feeling the symptoms again. Sunday they said no go. It's looking like Shepard's season is either over, or he's going to see even more missed time.
Yeah, your brain is super important. Best of luck over there. James Conner, running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Trey Edmonds did not practice. Edmonds.
Yeah, it looks like Trey Edmonds didn't practice, but Conner was limited.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this kind of goes in line with what Tomlin was saying at the beginning of the week. He believes Conner should perk up by the middle of the week and be limited, and then he's optimistic he will play, but he did not make any bold predictions. Basically talking out of two sides of his mouth there by Mike Tomlin, but we will see what happens with Conner. He didn't practice at all last week, so limited is a good sign.
Limited is a good sign. Speaking of limited and ramping up, Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes listed as a full participant in Wednesday's practice. Johnny, it looks like he's going to play, but are you expecting any regression, a little bit of a muted performance perhaps from Mahomes and the playmakers, or are you full confidence ahead?
There's also that there's always going to be that hesitation with, will he re-injure that? Will the kneecap pop out of place again? Reports are saying that by holding him out this extra week, he could have played last week, but there was about a 40% chance that it would pop out or re-injure, I should say. And then this week, they're saying if he just waited an extra week, so until this week, it would go down to about 15 to 20% chance. So there, it diminishes each and every single week. That's why they were.
What's
saying
the percentage of just like a regular person that their knee's going to pop out playing football?
God, you hope less than one, right?
Yeah, probably.
It's just interesting to think about that. Like if you, I don't know, if he's coming back from it, he's obviously got re-injury risk. But like, what is your pop out percentage?
I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I mean, Kyrie Irving suffered this a few years ago in the finals. He had the same injury, so it is something that definitely you're going to be worried about, and hopefully they don't put him out too early. That's what you're really hoping if you're a fantasy owner.
Hopefully they don't. Matt Morris certainly no Patrick Mahomes, but he has not looked bad.
No.
Amari Cooper over in Dallas, wide receiver. Is he expected to suit up? Travis, are you in on that?
You have to be. Cooper is a threat to go off in this offense at any point. He's shown great rapport since he came over to Dallas with Dak Prescott. So if you're an owner of Amari Cooper, you love this news. But I do wonder if this is a situation that's going to be the story of the rest of Amari Cooper's season. The foot, the knees, things that are just continuing to add up for him. And I'm really loving what I'm seeing out of Michael Gallup going forward with the fragility of Amari Cooper.
Right. Dwayne Haskins, quarterback for the Washington Redskins, earns another start, they say. Positive steps. Do you see that? Did you see that, Johnny?
That's really frustrating. The one nice thing is that they do have a really nice schedule coming up for the next 6 weeks, or 5 weeks, I should say. So that's something to monitor. You certainly want Case Keenum in there, but if they're going to put Haskins, hopefully he can get that connection over this bye week. It is interesting to know what truly is Case Keenum going through. Is he still in the concussion protocol? Are they benching him? What's going on there is something that's definitely going to be needing to know information coming out of the bye.
Definitely trust the doctors in Washington.
Yeah.
Right. You can set your clock by that diagnosis.
Yeah.
Staying in Washington, Redskins released running back Craig Reynolds today, making some room for Darius Geis. Remember him? He's activated to the 53-man roster coming out of the bye. Interesting news. Is it going to mean anything? Adrian Peterson's done a pretty good job. What do you expect to happen right now?
Well, they say, the best friend of a rookie quarterback or a young quarterback is a strong running game. Also, a tight end. But in this case, I think with guys coming back, he's a guy, unlike AP, is going to be in on a lot of passing down work too, because of his ability to catch balls and as an athlete. So I think that as long as Callahan really likes what he sees out of guys, he should slot guys in ahead of AP, and AP would be then used to spell guys. And so, Johnny talked about the schedule opening up. Geis was an interesting ad for me in a couple leagues a couple weeks back because, we talked about on the waiver, this could happen and the schedule could open up.
I think that interim head coach Callahan is going to do whatever is going to give him the best chance of looking good at winning games.
Right.
Whatever that means is what he's going to do.
And no disrespect to Adrian Peterson. He's a Hall of Famer. He's done really well in any little stop where he's been doubted in this back end of his career. But right now, they need to see what they have in Geis for the draft, too.
Yeah.
Because Geis has now been multiple injuries, and he's flashed greatness, or flashed, some juice, I should say. But now they need to see if
He's a second-round pick, and they still have no idea.
Yeah, they got to see.
Adam Gase said that Le'Veon Bell has a knee/ankle injury after taking that hit late in the game. MRI showed nothing structural, but he's pretty sore today, wouldn't practice. Johnny, are you thinking that this is going to be a game time decision? Is he going to play? Are they going to set him out? There's
really definitely something to monitor throughout the weekend. If he does sit, Bilal Powell seems to be the backup running back there. Who knows? That could be Ty Montgomery as well. They did add Josh Adams as well to their active roster, so that is a little concerning. But again, continue to monitor this to see exactly how injured he really is and if you need to get him out of your lineup.
And if you are rolling with one of those backups, good luck.
Yeah.
Freddie Kitchens hints that Kareem Hunt could hurt Chubb's touches. You buying into this, Travis?
I wasn't at the beginning of the year because I figured it didn't make a lot of sense if the Browns were doing well that they would bring Hunt back in and then curb Chubb. But at this point, Freddie Kitchens has done nothing to appease my mind that he's going to do logical football.
Sure.
So at this point, he's saying what he's going to do with Hunt and bring him in. And Hunt, I love Chubb and he's great, but Hunt is the better pass catcher. And this is a guy who led the league in rushing as a rookie. So we need to really take this. I think it's more about how it hurts Chubb than how it helps Kareem Hunt at this point in that offense. But I think, we need to monitor this very closely.
Yeah, Chubb has done a really good job, but they're not in a playoff hunt. They're not steamrolling ahead or anything like that. You might as well get to see what Kareem Hunt brings to you. I agree there. Jacoby Brissett, quarterback for the Colts, says his knee feels significantly better. Do you feel significantly better, Johnny, about Jacoby Brissett?
I do not. It looked pretty painful. What happened? He got a little bit of the bendy knee. Never like to see that for certain. So definitely continue to monitor this as well. Brian Hoyer looked decent when he stepped in. I always like Brian Hoyer. So, but this is definitely something that we need to monitor moving forward.
Wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings, Adam Thielen, his hamstring is giving him some problems. He's expected to miss week 10. Travis, do you think this is going to continue to stick around, or any idea?
Yeah, they're saying it's not a long thing, but this is the same team that told you Dalvin Cook's hamstring last year wasn't a long-term deal either. So at this point, we don't know with soft tissues. We do not know how long a hamstring will take. Sometimes it's 2 weeks, sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 6. We really just don't know, and I think Thielen is somebody that you have to hold as an owner, but I don't mind you clearing that space out because we just really don't know.
Yeah. Quarterback for the Carolina Panthers, Cam Newton, he's been placed on the injured reserve. His season is over. Maybe his career in Carolina is over. Maybe his career with football is over. I don't know. Johnny, what do you think?
Yeah, it's certainly looking that way. A lot of teams do need a quarterback. A lot of, Bears fans are screaming in their microphones, why didn't we trade for Cam and all this stuff? So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. There are a lot of quarterback needy teams, as we know. It'll be interesting to see if he's done, if his career is, kind of diminished. We've definitely seen that over the last couple of years. So it is looking like Cam Newton will no longer be a Carolina Panthers, and this is now Run CMC's team, as if that was a question before. It is now squandered.
Yeah, there's whispers here about this. It's an interesting one for me because the Panthers would be set to only write off about $2 million of his contract if they cut him loose, right? But they're getting him at a bargain right now. Really, I think he's like the 13th or 14th highest paid quarterback, so $20 million a year for next year. So why not keep him on there? I know Kyle Allen's been good, but keep him on the books because somebody is going to pay Cam Newton more than $20 million next year. I just don't see a quarterback
really have
team
him backing him up. I just don't see that necessarily happening.
It's going to be a fascinating one to watch.
We'll see what Cam Newton, how his ego, how his mind, everything was there. All I have to say about that is Cam Newton is a below average accuracy quarterback who is mobile, who is no longer mobile.
Yeah.
So
do
you want that on your team?
No longer mobile.
Nick Foles is going to be starting at quarterback for the Jaguars. Coach Doug Marrone just said. Gardner Minshew, great, nice story. Back up to the backup role. Johnny, do you support this? Travis, what do you think?
So I think they have to monetarily make this
dad
move.
Supports this. I think he's about to come over and open up a can of whoop ass on Doug Marrone. That's what
I wouldn't doubt it.
He's probably been drunk outside of the Jaguars gates for days now.
Him
I don't even know his dad.
Jaguar fan.
Alcohol issues are no joke. Sorry.
Yeah, this one's interesting. They have to probably do this move based on the contract they gave Nick Foles and the guaranteed money they gave him. Minshew, basically Nick Foles' deal is such that they can probably get out of this deal after 2 years and not hurting their cap so much. But do you think the Jaguars are going to bench Gardner Minshew for 2 years? I want to know how long Nick Foles' leash is, what we're going to see with Nick Foles before they go, okay, we need to see Minshew again. This one's really interesting to me.
I think the Nick Foles starting is the right call, and we'll see and learn a lot more every opportunity we get here. Jordan Matthews, wide receiver, now for the Eagles. They're bringing him back on. Familiar face. Does this mean anything?
I'm not too sold on this meaning much. I think, honestly, what will happen is most of what's been happening and that the tight ends see a ton of targets. Alshon Jeffrey, if he can get back healthy, will see a ton of targets. And Miles Sanders, who they've been using a lot at the wide receiver position because Howard's been doing so well as the rusher. Miles Sanders from time to time gets good receiving work. So Jordan Matthews has been relatively useless for a little bit of time now.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's the news and notes. It was a little meaty today. We're in that point of the year, of course, so we'd like to thank Fanatic. If you have an Apple device, get over to the App Store today and download Fanatic. That's Fanatiq. And as always, if you like the show, if you're listening right now, please leave us a review on whatever podcast app you're using. And then also, if you're listening or watching on YouTube, hit like, hit subscribe. And without further ado, we're going to jump into the top 5 games for Week 10. And so before we jump into this, just remember for your fantasy lineups, for your frame of reference, for your knowledge, so you don't get mad at us for not talking about these players or ranking them. The Jacksonville Jaguars, New England Patriots, Washington Redskins, Philadelphia Eagles, Denver Broncos, and the Houston Texans. 6 teams on bye. We're breathing a little bit of that sigh of relief. We don't have to go too crazy into a full slate of games, but we're going to miss them on Sunday.
Yeah, we will.
But anyways, we're going to hop into this first game. Austin, what's our first one on the slate here?
Los Angeles Chargers at the Oakland Raiders. They're playing this Thursday night. Over under is 48.5. Oakland's favored by 1. Man, I like this one as a Thursday matchup. This game has the makings of some potential exciting plays.
Yeah.
It's defenses, offenses that should be, shouldn't be, have been, who knows. It's a big wild card game as far as I'm concerned. I like a lot of the playmakers. I love what we see over there with the Chargers having Melvin Gordon, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Big Mike Williams, Hunter Henry, and Phillip Rivers is doing his thing. And over there in Oakland, Josh Jacobs is back. Tyrell Williams has caught a touchdown almost every time he's played. He's going to be in the lineup. And Darren Waller's a big tight end over there. I'm excited about this game. Johnny, are you excited about this game? What should we be looking out for?
Yeah, I'm definitely hoping, for my own fantasy team that Austin Eckler doesn't do very much in this game, and I hope that it is the Melvin Gordon show. But it's looking like Melvin Gordon is getting more and more carries as he, comes back from his holdout. But they are still using Austin Eckler, and the vast majority of targets are going to the running backs for the Chargers. But I want to note that Keenan Allen, I think that this will be a bounce back week for Keenan Allen. He hasn't been very nice to fantasy owners since, week 3, where he was, last popped off as a wide receiver and showed us what he really could do. But we talked about this several times during the offseason, that Keenan Allen often does this, where he will go long stretches of not scoring you very many fantasy points, and then he'll string together quite a few weeks where he does, put up elite wide receiver numbers. And I think it starts this week against an Oakland Raiders defense that is giving up the 6th most passing yards to opposing wide receivers. So Keenan Allen not on the injury report so far this week. I would fire him up against these LA Chargers.
Yeah, I think you made a good point about how bad Oakland is against the wide receiver. I think Mike Williams, I think Keenan Allen, and really you talked about the running backs as well. This offense seemed to get going a little bit last week against Green Bay at home. They played against Green Bay and kind of shocked everybody a little bit, got Green Bay in a trap game, but the offense, especially Melvin Gordon, started to look good. You saw Mike Williams finally get his first game over 100 yards in that game, which is kind of shocking. He's mostly been a touchdown maven, but he's yet to score, I believe, this year. He might have, I'd have to look that up, but the bottom line is he's getting decent amount of yardage, and he could be a touchdown positive regression candidate, and this is as good a spot as any going to get up against Oakland. Do you want to talk about how Oakland's been the 8th most over the last month? Oakland has allowed the 8th most fantasy points per game to the running back position, so you like that for Melvin Gordon and even Austin Eckler. Really high over-under, 48.5. And with that money line being at only one Oakland favorite here, you like both teams to get into that action. And so, Johnny, we move on to the Raiders. We talk about, what's your biggest storyline or biggest thing you're looking out for on the Raiders side of the ball?
Yeah, it's actually going to be taking out and benching Derek Carr. Now, maybe not a lot of people are have Derek Carr in their lineup, or, if it's a 2-quarterback league, or they're looking at streamers. There are 6 quarterbacks on a bye this week. So you might be looking at that quarterback, waiver wire. And I would say bench Derek Carr this week. It looks like a nice, juicy matchup. But although randomly Ryan Tannehill, take him out of this picture, and what he did in week 7, where he topped over 20 fantasy points. But outside of that, the Chargers haven't had one single quarterback go over 11 fantasy points against them since week 3, and that does include Aaron Rodgers last week, who did not cap that either. And Derek Carr has been hot, like I had referred to. He's had multiple touchdowns in the past 5 out of 6 games, but this week I think he'll cool off, so I would be sitting Derek Carr if you're thinking about streaming him.
Yeah, for me, it's Josh Jacobs and the story of this guy progressing throughout the year. We've seen him be really good. We've seen him, PFF grading him as the number 1 most elusive back in all of football. He has been solid. You'd like to get his receiving game worked more, but I just talked about how the Raiders have been over the last month against running backs, and Oakland's been, and the Chargers have been worse. So we've got the Chargers in a situation where if they want to kind of ease the pain of what they saw the Packers go through last week against Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa in that pass rush, they're going to have to attack that by running the football. And I think that makes a good matchup here for Josh Jacobs. And so I'm really excited to see how this offense, Gruden took a lot of flack over the last year and a half from some of his decision makings. He's actually got this Oakland Raiders squad playing some really good offense. And you think about what they could have been if Antonio Brown hadn't have gone crazy. Like they could have been one of the top 5 offensive squads in this league, just based on some of the numbers they're putting up. So that's where I'm at with that one. But I'm really excited for this Thursday game. Could be a really good one.
Should be a fun one. Yeah. I like that one. The next one we're going to talk about is the Kansas City Chiefs at the Tennessee Titans, over under 48.5. Kansas City's favored by 5.5. Starting off with the Chiefs, Travis, what are you looking for right now in a Chiefs team that is probably going to be getting Patrick Mahomes back? We've seen Damian Williams rise back onto the number one spot on the running back spot over there, but it changes all the time. Sammy Watkins had a decent week last week, but who the hell knows about that guy?
Yeah, I mean, who the hell knows about basically the running backs or what's going to happen? What we do know is that getting Patrick Mahomes back means an upgrade for these players. So if you're getting decent production out of guys like Sammy Watkins, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, even Damian Williams now with a Matt Moore, the ceiling has now extended a little bit further with Patrick Mahomes back in the lineup. And I do want to talk a little bit about Damian Williams. Since LaShawn McCoy's third quarter fumble, the touches for these running backs, this was in week 8 in their loss against the Packers. LaShawn McCoy fumbled in the third quarter. Damian Williams now has 21 touches to Shady's 4 and Darrell Williams 1. So really what we've seen is that Darrell Williams is now getting volume of an RB1 again in this offense. Is it going to stay? I have no idea. Like anybody has as good as guess as mine, but I do know that this is the upside. You know, Damian Williams now is starting to regain a little bit of that upside that we took him in the second and third rounds of fantasy football drafts for, because of this offense getting Mahomes back. You could see the way they work him in the passing game. Yes, McCoy can catch, but Williams is a pass catching specialist at the running back position. And so you could see the ceiling kind of reforming for Damian Williams here. Johnny, do you have other key points for the Chiefs that you're looking at in this matchup?
Yeah, I just do like the wide receiver matchups here. Tennessee has been a defense that, has been pretty good for fantasy purposes, and, they've been locking down some wide receivers, but you look at the matchups that they're saying Tyreek Hill has against LaShawn Sims. He's been giving up a ton of yardage to wide receivers, and that mismatch, according to Pro Football Focus, is actually an 18%, which is pretty high for a wide receiver to be in the bonus there. And even you're looking at, Sammy Watkins, Logan Ryan will be matched up against him, or at least that's what they're thinking, which is a plus 8% matchup right there. So I wouldn't be fine if Patrick Mahomes is going. I would line him up in this game at least as a flex start here, especially with 6 teams on a bye.
All right. With the Tennessee Titans, we've got Ryan Tannehill has been behind center the last couple of weeks. That's going to continue. Jonnu Smith has been at the tight end position with excuse me,
Delaney
Walker. Thank you, Delaney Walker. Jonnu Smith's been coming
Walker
in.
Forgot about
Hunter Henry though has been that only consistent presence with the Titans. What else should we be looking out there for, Travis? What are
really the pass catchers should get increased usage here because of the fact that Mahomes will be back. So you're going to see a higher over under. You're going to see a shootout potential happen there. Mm-hmm. But I really want to smash my play or my shares of Derek Henry this week. Only the Dolphins have given up more rushing yards than the Chiefs with 1,057 rushing yards on the year through 10 games. That's literally 100 yards a game they've been giving up. So, I think that if the Tennessee Titans have been watching the film on the Chiefs, so the way to combat Mahomes is to keep him on the other side of the field, control the tempo of the game, control the time of possession. So I think if you have AJ Brown and you've got 6 teams on bye, if you've got Corey Davis and you're feeling like, what the hell, let's try it. Yeah, you're going to get a shot at maybe some upside, even Jonnu Smith there. But I think the real play you need to be going for here, because Henry has been disappointing, and the Titans have had spurts with Tannehill or without of an offense that just can't keep going, and he continues to not be used in the passing game. But this is a matchup where they've got to go all in on giving him the ball, 15, 20 times.
Yeah.
Johnny.
I would actually disagree on that one. I don't think that this is a Derrick Henry game. I'm actually really concerned with Derrick Henry. I think that they will be trailing. Once they are trailing, they will be taken out of Derrick Henry's game script because he cannot catch the ball at all out of the backfield. I think that Kansas City has actually been, over the last couple of weeks, oddly enough, been playing really good defense on the run front. Their D line has actually stepped up in a big way. And so for me, I just fear that with Derrick Henry, he's been rolling. I understand he's been a good little fantasy darling, but if he doesn't get in the end zone, we saw it last week. If he doesn't get in the end zone, fantasy owners are left, scratching their head saying, "Dang it! If I only had a little bit more from Derrick Henry." And I just see that happening again this week.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. He could get game scripted out, but I will say the Chiefs have not been really good against running backs. And some of that is who they've played, right? They played Dalvin Cook last week. They played Aaron Jones the week before. So yeah, you could talk about they've played much more skilled backs. But I really think that if Tennessee wants any shot of winning this game, they'll have to lean on Derrick Henry this week. But I do understand the concern for Derrick Henry owners. I just think it's if you can't play him against Kansas City, I don't know that you could be playing him against many other teams.
And I'll just flag that Derrick Henry hasn't had under 60. Derrick Henry's only had under 60 yards twice, and he hasn't had that since week 6.
So yeah, there's going to be, I think there'll be opportunity there, but I understand Johnny's concern about getting game scripted out, and he has, like I said, he has not been used in the passing game.
No,
no
more than 3 targets a game.
And so you could see a lot of plays where Deion Lewis is coming in, which defies all logic.
Next game, Arizona Cardinals at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Over under 54, minus 4.5 for Tampa Bay, favored in this one. Starting off with the Cardinals, we're dealing with a messy backfield a little bit. We know David Johnson said he was going to be back. Kyler Murray has done good things for fantasy purposes and decent things for the Arizona Cardinals as well. Drake had a great game last week, but what are you thinking about that, Johnny?
If I'm in a bind, like we said, we keep bringing it up. There are a lot of teams on a bye, so you're going to really kind of have to scratch the barrel on this one. But Kenyon Drake looked great last week, and he carried the vast majority of the load here. He looked agile. I always have known that Kenyon Drake was a very talented running back, and so it didn't surprise me when he went off last week. There is some concern. This is a tough matchup. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are one of the best against the run. However, a lot of it has been due to game script. They have, been up or in, boat races with teams, and so therefore teams kind of abandon the run a little bit. So it will be interesting. The Cardinals do run a little bit differently than most teams because of where their offensive linemen are and how they're spaced. But it'll be an interesting battle here, but I would be fine starting both DJ and Kenyon Drake in this game if I needed to.
Yeah, I think just given the pedigree that Drake has with this offense and the team, he's definitely probably going to be the 1A in any kind of committee that happens if he's going to play. But I do think Drake has some appeal here. I mean, you look at the 19 touches last week. Obviously, he's not going to hit that again if DJ's active. But we saw Edmonds with DJ on the field kind of get some play there as DJ was kind of lumbering from the back injury to begin with. So I think that there's some play for Drake here. We know he's a passing game specialist. We know that the Cardinals have struggled to get, maybe a third option going in the receiving game beyond Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk. And maybe that answer is running backs. We knew, coming in, Cliff Kingsbury was going to get running backs, targets and catches. And now we're seeing that on full blast here. So yeah, I do think Drake has some appeal.
I'll just say too that the Arizona Cardinals have been notoriously distracting in terms of their running backs' health and have thrown out smoke screens with the intent of just, we don't care about you.
Yeah.
So just keep in mind that David Johnson said he's back, but I like that Drake spot too.
Yeah, Johnny, Matt Berry, everybody getting in on some Arizona sports, talking to him about what's going on with their shade on fantasy football. So
yeah, right.
That's some fun stuff. But yeah, I think this game, like, look, there's not a Arizona Cardinal outside of the ancillary pieces that I'm not stoked about starting here. 54-point over under against Tampa Bay, who just took Seattle to overtime and literally everybody scored.
Yeah.
So like, I like Kirk, I like Fitzgerald, I'm liking both the running backs if they're going. I think that Kyler Murray is a great start this week too, especially if you're streaming quarterback. I think this is a great game to be invested in. And so on that note, Johnny, taking it over to the Buccaneers side, like where are your eyes peeled for this one?
It's definitely going to be on the cornerback matchup of Patrick Peterson versus Mike Evans, which this could be a sneaky a sneaky trap game for Mike Evans owners. And hear me out. Listen, Patrick Peterson got torched last weekend, gave up essentially the game to he gave up the game because his play was so bad. And even the GM came out and said later on, it wasn't Patrick Peterson's best day. And so I think he might take it as a challenge. He might come out here and we've seen Mike Evans kind of, their playing styles are similar in that Mike Evans doesn't do well with bigger physical cornerbacks. And Patrick Peterson is actually better when he's up against a bigger physical running back. More of these agile wide receivers are the ones that tend to torch him a little bit more. So it'll be an interesting case here. I'm not benching Mike Evans, but I'm certainly, tempering my expectations and looking at this matchup as not so much as a plus minus as it would look on paper.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard for you to bench Mike Evans. I do think it'll be interesting to see how Patrick Peterson rebounds because he's getting roasted in media as not being himself, but we know that Patrick Peterson should still have all the tools to be an elite corner in this league.
That happens when you come off of PEDs. You don't know how to react to the first.
You're not on the drugs. You're not as good anymore.
Yeah, maybe that was the whole. He had Michael's secret stuff the whole time.
Oh wow, you're not as good when you're not cheating anymore. Weird.
I think somebody that's kind of having a little bit of a coming out party over the last 2 weeks, and fantasy owners are rejoicing is Ronald Jones. We're actually seeing, over the last 2 weeks, 29 carries. He had 2 red zone touches just last week. And Bruce Arians was quoted saying he's earned the right to start and play more snaps in this offense. You look at the metrics between him and Peyton Barber, who has now been rendered pretty much useless. Yards per carry, Jones has 4.1. Barber's got 3.3. Yards per target, once again, Ronald Jones 11.3 to Barber's 2.8. That's really bad. Yards per contact per attempt, 2.76 for Jones. Barber kind of caught up a little bit on that with 2.7, but I really like what I'm seeing out of Ronald Jones and, out of what Byron Leftwich is doing here to get him more involved in the offense. So I think that hopefully this is a sign to see more going forward. And once again, in this matchup, a lot of points. He could easily be, this team is going to consistently get up and down the field. They have the weapons to do that. Jones could be a nice guy that we're seeing to finally post-hype sleeper kind of come out of this funk he was in and do some damage.
I really like it. Ronald Jones was a high drafted back coming out, obviously very talented. They've had so many issues, the Buccaneers, that is with their coaching and their systems, and Jameis Winston is Jameis Winston. But when you bring in a guy like Bruce Arians, a guy who has that ability to lead men and women and to bring the best out of people.
Yeah.
I have nothing but positive things to say about Bruce Arians. It was just a matter of time. Remember when he was with Arizona and David Johnson was the rookie running back and Chris Johnson was the lead back, and David Johnson was the more talented guy, but Arians is one of those earn it. If you're a rookie, you're going to have to earn it. You're going to have to prove it. Otherwise, we're going to give it to the older, more veteran backs. That's what we saw with Peyton Barber. I'm just glad to see Ronald Jones emerge and to put his talent on display and to reach his potential a little bit more closely. And when we look at this in hindsight, it really wasn't any doubt with a coach like Bruce Arians. It was just a matter of time. So
yeah, what we've seen now too is that this team is leaning, more towards a Bruce Arians offense. We talk about how much he wants to push the ball down the field through the air. Yes, he does like to do that, but he loves a good run game. Like he is devoted to the run, and we've seen that in all of his teams, and we're starting to see that a little bit with Ronald Jones now.
Moving on, the Minnesota Vikings play at the Dallas Cowboys. Over-under is 47.5, with the Cowboys favored by 3. I like this game. It's 2 teams that should be better than they are, but they can catch you at any point and make it the most exciting matchup of the week. This game, as far as I'm concerned, could be as boring as hell or the best one we've seen in a while. Minnesota, big playmakers and Stephon Diggs and Dalvin Cook. What do you think about this one, Johnny? Sticking with Minnesota first.
Yeah, so I do have a little bit of concern with, starting Kirk Cousins. Now, Kirk Cousins coming off a pretty good game, but Dallas's defense is actually pretty solid, as well as you look at what Kirk Cousins is now missing. Diggs has been known to disappear, and Travis is going to talk about that in a second. But also you're looking at a guy who this is going to be on prime time. This is Sunday night, and Kirk Cousins tends to shy away in these prime time games underneath the big lights. Certainly can get it done, during on stats and on the paper. He might have a decent game, completions wise. He is completing it at an all-time high right now. However, when you look at the game script, I think they're going to run the ball because they're going to want to keep Dallas off the field and keep that potent offense off the field. In order to do that, they're going to run a lot with Dalvin Cook. So I think this is going to be a big Dalvin Cook game, as well as temper your expectations a little bit for Kirk Cousins this week.
Yeah, this one's interesting to me. We're going to see what Dallas is made of a little bit in this one. We've seen them kind of look to the next game, and they even had a little bit of that last week against the Giants on Monday night. I could see them kind of not taking the Giants seriously and almost kind of, taking a while to get warmed up. We'll see if they're ready. This one's at home. The Vikings need this one really bad, coming off a game they probably should have taken against Kansas City. They'll be coming into this game, and Johnny alluded to it, but Diggs, when you look at his matchups against cornerbacks, especially top cornerbacks in the league, he has kind of shied away from those moments. He's really exploded in good matchups, but kind of shied away in the tougher ones. Dallas fits that mold as a tough matchup. Over the last month, they've only allowed the seventh least receiving yards to wide receivers in that span. So you're looking at a situation where, Diggs should get force fed with Thielen missing. But will it be a game, where Dallas's pressure gets to Minnesota too fast for those downfield routes to develop? We're going to have to see. Do have a really decent over-under at 47.5, with Cowboys only favored by 3 at home. So really 3 points is what Vegas gives you when you're at home if it's an even matchup. So this is kind of a matchup I'm intrigued by. Austin alluded to it. But on the Dallas side of the ball, Johnny, what are we thinking about their playmakers?
Yeah, so I'm mostly looking at, we got the information that Amari Cooper might not be able to play. So if he doesn't play, then I actually think that it would be better for Ezekiel Elliott. But what I'm about to talk about is Ezekiel Elliott with Amari Cooper. And it seems like a lot of his, 2018 production that we love, we had always, beat the table and said, can we get Ezekiel Elliott more catches out of the backfield? And that happened in 2018. What we're not seeing in 2019 are those same kind of targets. He's actually reverted to somewhat under 4 targets per game, which was like he had 2 years ago. He's seeing, the majority of the rushing attempts, but not enough through the air to make him that super elite running back that we thought he could be and what he was last year. When Ezekiel Elliott doesn't catch out of the backfield, obviously it lowers his ceiling. And you look at what the Vikings have done over this season, and they have only allowed on average 86 rushing yards per game, and they've only given up 2 rushing TDs to the running back position. So it's definitely a little bit of a concern for Ezekiel Elliott owners. Listen, you're still going to start him. You're still going to play him. He should be fine, but he doesn't have that elite upside that you might want or wish for, that he still has not done one single time this year.
Are we having fun yet? Are we having fun now?
Johnny may be alluding to.
You don't own him.
Yeah,
I think it is tough to look at Ezekiel Elliott and say it reminds me of a little bit of David Johnson last year, where you're like just frustrated with David Johnson the whole year, and then you look at the end of the year and he's the RB9.
Yeah,
we're seeing a similar situation with Zeke right now. You're looking through the year, you're like, come on, man, get it going. I want to see that pop, especially when you watch them play. And he's ripping off 7-8 yard runs. He's
running the ball well.
Yeah, it's a little bit frustrating to see them not lean on him more. But this was what they wanted to do with Kellen Moore, the new offensive coordinator, is say, yes, we want Zeke to be the motor. We paid him big money, but we also need to keep him fresh for the playoff stretch. We also need Dak to make plays because we've got other playmakers in this offense. I look at what's going on with this matchup against Minnesota, and they're not the secondary or the pass defense they used to be. And so that's where you can really attack them. And I look at the Cooper injury, and I look directly to Michael Gallup, who we talked about a little bit at the top. Minnesota is allowing, the 9th most points per game to the wide receiver in all of 2019. Jeez. And I think in the 5 full games that you've seen Gallup play, he's averaged 9 targets, 5 catches, 84 yards, and almost half a touchdown. So I think this is a guy that's getting yardage, getting volume, and could explode in the back half of this year based on his role in this offense. Especially Dallas's schedule is about to get pretty tough. They play Minnesota, they got New England coming up. I think they play Houston. So there's some really tough games in there where they're gonna need to push on offense, and Dak and Gallup are nice plays going down the stretch.
Gallup could definitely hit his stride moving forward, and dare I say, move into a Gallup.
What? Gallup down the stretch. Well, and the thing to not forget about Gallup is that before they even traded for Amari Cooper, they wanted Gallup to be the Dez Bryant replacement. Right. Gallup was the guy drafted high in the draft to
Cooper
replace
came out of nowhere.
Dez Bryant. Yeah, literally. Came out of nowhere.
Came out of the closet and was like, whoa!
Hey.
And you're like,
yeah. So I think that Gallup is a guy that you could really lean into in this game.
Yeah. Moving on, we've got the Seattle Seahawks playing at the San Francisco 49ers divisional showdown. Over under 46.5. Monday night.
Dun, dun, dun,
minus
dun, dun.
6 points for San Francisco. Dunna. Seahawks, man, they have impressed me across the board. Russell Wilson playing like an MVP candidate.
Yes.
Chris Carson doing his thing over there, running the ball extremely well. Tyler Lockett and his virgin ass are killing it. DK Metcalf is catching a ton of touchdowns right now. They just landed Josh Gordon.
And he looks to be playing this week. He's going.
And he looks
saying he's
because why the heck not?
Yeah.
It's like run and catch. Like, we're not going to think of anything complicated.
Here's the thing.
He's just going to be the third option.
Yep.
He's not going to take away from DK. He's not going to take away from Tyler Lockett. He's not going to take away from his boys. He's going to be that third option. And who the hell cares about Jerron Brown? Like, I'm sorry.
They're going to stick him in goal line situations. I think. I mean, he might play a little bit between the 20s here, but I would imagine.
You mean for this week immediately?
For this week, I think that I wouldn't be shocked at all if he gets a touchdown in this game. And I could definitely see them, in their 20 yards out, 10 yards out, they stick him in. He's humongous. Every time you see him out there, he looks like a freaking linebacker lined up down there, or a tight end, because his body's so big. And, it's going to be hard to defend, right? You got DK Metcalf on one side, you got Josh Gordon on the other, and then you got Tyler Lockett, playing in the slot, and then you've got Chris Carson. These guys... It's going to be. This is the game I'm most excited for this week. Seeing this Monday night game, and it could also decide my fate and fantasy.
As a Packer fan, I'm hoping that Seattle doesn't pull off what I think they're capable of in beating the 49ers before the Packers get to.
Mm-hmm.
I really want the Packers to be the Niners' first loss, but this is a game, like Johnny said, I'm fascinated with. This is the something has to give matchup of the week. Last week, it was Lamar Jackson versus Bill Belichick. That was the something has to give. This is it for me. Russell Wilson has been, world beater this year as far as a quarterback. He's been the number 1 quarterback in fantasy, and San Francisco has been the number 2 defense against fantasy quarterbacks all year.
Did you say?
Over the last month, 49ers have only allowed 6.89 points per game to the quarterback on average, where, you look at what Russell Wilson's done in the last month, it's like this has been eye-popping. On the year, he's got 22 touchdowns, 1 interception, 68.3 completion percentage, and a 78.5 QBR. I'm really excited to see this from a football perspective. I don't think, given the over-under is pretty decent for a San Fran game and their defense. And we saw Arizona with a mobile quarterback, a guy who can fling it, was able to get some plays accomplished against that pass rush for San Francisco. So this one is going to be interesting. Now, San Fran's had a lot of time to prepare, but you could probably prepare all year and still not be ready for Russell Wilson.
Mm-hmm. Mm. On the other side of the ball, the 49ers, man, this is taking a moment here. After they've gotten Emmanuel Sanders, things have changed a little bit. But this offense was so damn weird.
Yeah.
They're scoring points with no viable fantasy options. And I know George Kittle plays for this team. He was fine. He's fine. He's fine. But he's bleh, right?
Yeah.
And
he had been,
they're scoring points. They're doing it with 7 different running backs. Jimmy Garoppolo didn't even look that good. They're throwing it to all these people and they're scoring, but nobody is worth starting. So it's kind of this weird thing, but it's shifting a little bit now, right? It's a clear 1A, 1B in Tevin Coleman, Matt Breida. And Emmanuel Sanders looks really good. He worked my ass in fantasy last week.
Yeah, and I what I'm interested in is on the reverse side of the ball. We talk about San Francisco being really good on defense. Seattle has not been very great on defense.
Not great.
And they've they've allowed, Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett to have these top 5, top 6 years because they are allowing so many points scored against them. So Jimmy G, fresh off his Aaron Andrews pitch, will be going into this game to try.
You like that, baby?
Yeah, he's going to like this defense that he's playing against. I know that much because this is a defense that's allowed a lot of points to the wide receiver, to the quarterback over the last month or so. But I'm really interested to see, what the 49ers do with this backfield. We actually saw a little bit of Tevin Coleman kind of ceding some work to Matt Breida, who, was banged up all week, but wasn't even going to play, and then plays in that game and looks electric. So this is the most run-heavy team. They're going to get, Staley back on the line. They're going to get Juszczyk back in as a fullback. Their run blockers are going to be fortified here, and we could see them run all over, Seattle if they're not careful and just get out of this game with a W. Johnny, are there anybody on the 49ers side you're especially interested in?
Well, I want to talk reverse there just about George Kittle. He has been, a top tight end. He hasn't even talked about Ezekiel Elliott hasn't given you that edge breakout game yet. George Kittle really hasn't either. He's not had that breakout game where he's gotten you, the 20+ fantasy points like he was doing last week or last year. And then you look at this matchup, right? Travis talked about it. Oh, Seattle's giving up a ton of fantasy points to wide receivers. And they're giving up a lot to the wide receivers, but not very much to the tight end position. So George Kittle, you're certainly going to roll him out there, but I want you to temper your expectations over here. I'm just realizing like I'm starting to become the guy who's just like the bad news Johnny. Like I always just tell you guys to temper your expectations for these stars because I'm doing it once again. But realize this, Seattle has only allowed one tight end to top 70 yards this year, and that was Jared Everett in week 5, and they've only allowed 3 top 50 finishes this whole entire year. And you also have to remember George Kittle kind of got dinged up there in that Arizona Cardinals game. It has been an extended break because that was a Thursday night game. This is a Monday night game, so get some that extra couple days of rest. I'm hoping as a George Kittle owner that this comes to be just because teams were just throwing towards the wide receiver because they could and not necessarily towards the tight end position, but we'll see. I'm just saying temper your expectations. It's not looking like the best matchup.
Those are the games that we are taught. Those are the games we are most excited for this week. If there's another matchup you're excited to see, hit us up in those DMs on your social media platform of preference, or start your own podcast and call them out yourself. We're moving on now to the quick starts and sits, but really, they'll just hit us up. We love to talk about this stuff.
Yeah,
It's literally
for sure.
why we're doing exactly this. Or, and you can
Start
do that
your
too.
own podcast.
It's
We'll bring
crazy. Amazon will hook it up. You just need money and knowledge,
Yeah.
and you can do it, and then time and commitment.
I mean, we were literally talking about fantasy before we started this podcast show. We were talking about fantasy.
But it's crazy, right?
Just
Crazy.
somebody decided to put a mic in a
Wild
video
wild
or a camera.
It was really surprising the first time we found out.
Yeah.
Quick starts and sits. We're sticking with the same teams that with first team Atlanta Falcons at New Orleans Saints, over under 51.5. New Orleans is favored by 13. I'm going to run down these teams, starting off with the Falcons. Johnny, Travis, you let me know. Start, sit. All right.
All right.
Matt Ryan should be back with that ankle. What do you think?
Low end
I'm gonna go-
QB1.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think you can start him, but you're tempering expectations. If you got another streamer you like better, fire him up. He's got the ankle and they're down.
No disagreements.
Yeah.
Julio Jones.
Got to start him. It's Julio Jones.
Tough
Calvin
matchup,
Ridley?
man.
I think he's a flex wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 3 range. Here.
I would sit
Probably
him
wide
this
receiver
week.
3.
I would sit him this week.
Devontae Freeman.
You're probably
In a
trying
bye
to find
week,
better. 6 teams on bye. It's hard to.
We know the Saints D is good, but this is the running back, Ito Smith. Who the hell knows what's going on with him? Brian Hill, who cares? So, Devontae Freeman, good. No. Volume, yes. So, There you go. And Austin Hooper,
must start.
right.
Yep.
On the other side of the ball with the Saints, Drew Brees.
Yeah, I'm smashing all the flipping Saints in this one. They're
Yep.
heavy favorites. Drew Brees looks solid after that thumb injury.
Alvin Kamara is going to be back.
Yep.
Starting him if he's
Starting.
back. Michael Thomas, been the number 1 wide receiver in football.
Latavius Murray's the
Question
interesting one here because they were running really well with him in the lineup. I wonder if they go, oh, we've got something here to keep riding Murray and bring Kamara in on those limited touches that we know Sean Payton is not going to be any more intrigued to put Kamara out there
Right.
any extra after he just got dinged up.
What do you think, Johnny, about
I
Latavius
would
Murray?
flex Latavius Murray.
Yeah, and I'll just say full disclosure on that one. I am a Latavius, but it's pretty difficult to deny what he's done these last several weeks while Kamara has been down. Great numbers across the board. And as the Saints prepare for a playoff run and Alvin Kamara's coming off of a high ankle sprain, why are you going to be maxing out his touches
Agreed.
heading into the playoffs when you've got a very, very good back there? I think you're going to see those touches even up. Moving on to the Rams and Pittsburgh Steelers game, over under 45.5, with the Rams favored by 3.5. Starting on that side of the ball, Jared Goff, starter set.
Sit.
Yeah, I don't love this matchup. Pittsburgh's been really good over the last month.
Todd Gurley.
You got to start Todd Gurley, I think.
He's more of a RB2 though.
Robert Woods.
I'm fading Rob. I'm fading a lot of the pass catchers here, except for Cooper Kupp. I think he's the only one you lock.
Yeah.
And about Robert Woods if you got to, but if you got a better option,
Yeah.
isn't that always the story? Josh Reynolds.
This is going to be the game when everyone benches him and he gets 3 touchdowns.
They've been benching him for a couple weeks. So,
Josh Reynolds.
once again with the Robert Woods situation,
Yeah.
I can't really advise getting him. I think he's interesting.
Yeah.
Let's see if that rapport builds up. But like you,
Here now.
Yeah.
Other side of the ball, James Conner.
I think if he's active, you've got to roll him out here. He was the focal point of their offense for the last 3 weeks when he was in. So
Totally
And
agree.
with that backfield, Jalen Samuels.
I think both of these guys can be a 1A, 1B if they're healthy. We've seen them both get usage. I wouldn't, love to start Samuels if Connor's healthy, but if Connor's not playing, you've got to roll Samuels out there. He's going to be the only guy in the field.
Juju Smith-Schuster.
Sitting. He's
Juju is so disappointing.
He's going to be up against. Now I'm blanking on his name. You guys just traded for him from the
Jalen
Giants.
Ramsey.
Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey will be following him, shadowing.
Yeah,
him.
and Mason Rudolph has not been able to push the ball
No.
consistently.
It's hard to turn down talent, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Start somebody else if you got someone better. That's actually the advice every week, no matter the player.
Yeah.
Vance McDonald.
I'd sit him here.
Yeah, I'd say him. I've got him ranked outside top 10.
All right, love those breakdowns. Now we're switching over a little to something different. Under the radar, plays or fades. Johnny, I'll just take the floor.
This is under the radar play for me, and that's going to be Devonta Parker of the wide receiver for the Dolphins, which sounds gross. I get it. But listen, this guy has been pretty productive for fantasy since week 4 of the fantasy season. So he has scored in his last 4 out of 5 games. Preston Williams had a breakout game last weekend. However, unfortunately for him, he went down with an injury and he is done for the season. Therefore, Parker becomes essentially, he was already the number 1 wide receiver there, but that just solidifies that. He's got the most targets for the team and most air yards. And since week 4, Parker ranks wide receiver 17 in half-point PPR leagues. So fire up Parker this week. He's got a good matchup, and he could pay off for you. And his schedule moving forward is very, very nice.
Under the radar play for you, Travy.
I think that David Montgomery could see RB1 finish this week in the top 12. His touches have gone up each and every week. And then you look at Detroit, who has been just getting gashed by the running back over the last month. Only the Chiefs and Panthers have given up more points to the running back position than the Detroit Lions. So I'm really high on Montgomery. And kind of going forward this year, he could have solidified a role. As Mitch Trubisky declines, you see the running game trying to keep up for this offense to keep going.
Now on the other side, those under the radar fade. Johnny, who stands out to you?
I've said a couple here, but I'm going to say Robert Woods is going to be a fade here. The matchup might not seem that scary on paper. However, he is not getting the amount of views and targets that you would expect him to get or that he is known to get in past years. It's looking like it's just Cooper Kupp, and even when Josh Reynolds came in, he got more targets than Robert Woods did, so which is unfortunate for Robert Wood owners, but I would fade him this week.
All right, and an under the radar fade for you, Big Travy.
I'm actually going to roll with Allen Robinson here. People have the expert consensus ranking really has him high. Sticking with the Bears here, I guess I'm obsessed, but I really like what Detroit's been able to do against the pass, especially with Darius Slay. I think that Allen Robinson and Mitch Trubisky's struggle is not somebody I want to be trusting in my lineup, even though he is getting somewhat good target volume. I'm just not trusting Allen Robinson here. Well, I think that does it for us today. If you've got any guys that are really into that you want to talk about, Whisper Nation, hit us in the comments like Austin was saying. Hit a like, hit a subscribe, get us those comments, DM us. We're everywhere. We're watching you. No, I'm just kidding. We are here for you. We want to support you, help you get those Week 10 wins. For Johnny Game Time Hicks, Austin Sear, I'm Big Travy. Head over to thefantasywhispers.com because we're out of here. Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Whisperers podcast. You can hear more from John and Travis on Google Play, SoundCloud, and iTunes. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at TF Whisperers.